We would like now to open the our discussion here, informal. I'll moderate it. Yes, Carlos.
So, as an entrepreneur, you moved from something very concrete and physical, real estate, land, to something like data, which is much harder to sell or explain to somebody. You can't show somebody a row of servers and try and sell them that.
Sure you can.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can. But it's much easier to show them.
I'm kidding, Carlos. I'm kidding. So I know where you're going.
So, where do you see if you were not you and you were starting today? Would you go towards the data side, or would you go more towards the concrete, physical stuff?
No, it's a very good question, and I'll tell you something. If I were starting again today, I wouldn't do anything different that I did. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really depends on your... Now, if you ask me about opportunities are in the new technologies. Opportunities, there's a war in cyber war that we're fighting every day. And that cyber war will continue. It's a modern version of cops and robbers. There's a whole revolution happening on how IT is deployed. Rudy was just talking about the fact that, he's going to start in the cloud. Think about the industrial IT that has happened up to today. How big companies, how Miami-Dade County, and how to have you amassed this IT, right? You bought it's an eclectic amalgamation of hardware, software, systems, some virtualization, etc., etc. Today, it's called the agile IT, the cloud. You don't need any of that stuff. So there's a whole revolution on how do you help enterprises move from this dogmatic industrial IT to the new agile IT. These are all great opportunities, broad opportunities that are going to last for way past us, because it's a revolution there's no turning back. When you are now today looking at, you cannot live without the information technology today, right? I mean, it's the best. It's a sad way, but the best way that I heard it put was that if you think about, it's like aviation, right? If you think about, there's a cyber attack today and something is down and you were hacked and you see all this news, 2 million people, or you were hacked or the CIA was hacked, etc. It's just news, but that doesn't put you down. Let me get to my PDA so I can connect and see what the news is, right? It's no different than a plane crash. Plane crashes and oh my God, terrible, but how long is the airport going to be shut down? So there's no turning back in this revolution of IT, which I wanted very much to play a part in the mid-90s when I actually began helping my kids with their homework, and I said there was this thing called AOL, and I said, wait a minute, I don't have to plow through 42 books in the encyclopedia, and I can actually just, the very basic basis. The same thing is happening now in a different way, right? Away from helping the business. So if I were giving you advice, I would say go into areas that are more complicated. That doesn't mean you cannot be a successful entrepreneur in doing whatever. Garbage or renewable energies or building houses or whatever. If you apply yourself and if you really have an idea and you believe in it, you're going to succeed on it. There is a lot more opportunity in areas that there's less people, right? I mean, that's what, I remember along the boom days of the real estate here while I was struggling to save Terremark, and while people said Manny went off the Looney Tune to the Looney Farm, people say, you must feel terrible because look at all this money that's being made in real estate. Land that was worth 10 is now worth 49,000. So you've missed this opportunity. Real estate and the bubble and burst of real estate have been a part of South Florida since Flagler was down here. Probably the Indians were probably burst the bubble before we didn't even know about it. So obviously it was getting into the information technology and getting into this field that I knew nothing about. I'm not a technologist. It was challenging, but today it's absolutely what I would do. I don't know if that explains what I'm saying, but right? But it doesn't mean you have to go and become a. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Hey, I'm sure we have more questions. Other questions from students? Yes?
I know that you expanded to Europe and South America. What issues did you face when you expanded to this country?
Well, let's go back. That's a very good question, by the way, and something that that is very important. I love international business. I love it. I like it. I like languages. I like learning about cultures. I like when I go to Brazil, I like to falar português and tomar la caipirinha, and basically, and I like to. When I was in the Middle East, I was actually trying to learn as much Arabic as I could, and so forth and so on when I traveled China. So I like the cultures, right? As you expand internationally, number one lesson that you learn, and I learned that early on, is that you don't do business there the way you want to do business, the way you do it, the way they want to do business. So, for example, in Brazil, it was a Brazilian who's actually still there, great guy, so forth and so on. So we actually in Amsterdam, the culture shock. We bought a company in Amsterdam. I admire the Dutch. Dutch are very difficult, but I admire them. And eventually imagine my clash, and the Dutch are Germans with a little bit more sense of humor. So basically, because they drink Heineken. That's so basically. So every country that you go to, but then we learn, and they learn from us, and you learn from them. You're not going to change it. So the most important thing is when you go, and this is the number one mistake that I saw always, particularly with American companies. European companies are not like that. They actually come in and they try to adapt, right? But American companies have this is the way it's done. And so the issue is that you gotta think like them, and it's very difficult when you have this structured mentality and reports, etc., and you're battling laws like the FCPA and the Foreign Corruption Practices Act and things like that. You're trying to walk that fine line at the same time that you actually want your business to prosper there. However, it's invigorating. It is invigorating. Even today, I'm not right now. There's so many opportunities here, but we very much look forward to expanding again in Latin America and Europe. The last place that we opened, the last data center that we opened, was in Istanbul, Turkey, as we were heading east, and that was an incredible experience. So I think that if you keep that in mind, by the way, I would encourage all of you. I mean, the reason why I joined Pricewaterhouse right out of college, and that I went with them was because Pricewaterhouse offered. They were one of the first firms that realized how important Latin America was going to be. So me, like you, coming out of college, all of a sudden I was in a plane, traveling through Latin America, etc. So I would encourage all of you at this young age, go somewhere, do it, because it stays with you, and it's a value that will be with you for the rest of your life.
Thank you. We need more questions. Any more questions? Okay, we have plenty here.
Yeah, go ahead.
What would you say you do that helps you bring out the qualities that help you be an entrepreneur?
I think one of the things, that's a great question as well. You guys are really, I'm proud of you guys.
School of Business.
Girls. No, it's true. But I think one of the talents that you have to develop, and again, it goes back to being sure of yourself, because it goes back to being humbled by the people around you, because they're so much smarter than you are. And I think one of the things that is very important is bring out the talents of the people around you. People have certain talents that they have innate. And, and you got to be able to recognize that. And you learn through time. How do you actually do it? Right? Some people are just better here than there. So it's encouraging. The way I managed the company was a very formal way that I'm sure you learn. But the most fun of the company was I called it the kitchen cabinet. And Terremark grew to 1,000 employees. And we were third in a bunch of countries, etc. Kitchen cabinet were 13 boys and girls that actually we came together once a month. It was mandatory. Wherever you were, you had to be there. And we ended up having a dinner the night before, and then the next morning we get up at 7 a.m. and start, and it would be for 5 hours until 12. And this is once a month. The only rules is there was no rules. The only rule was that if you didn't bring anything up at the kitchen cabinet, you couldn't bring it up otherwise. And therefore, so you actually, and I enforced it. So basically, so it was fun seeing the interaction amongst them and bringing out, and I know, so it's bringing this talented pool of people that all of them probably substantially smarter than I was, and particularly certainly on the technology, etc., and being able to bring the best out of them is probably one of the things that helped us the most, and sometimes refereeing them. Make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Students, anyway? Okay.
Hey, the room is on balance, so I want some questions from.
In the back, yeah.
Manny, from a venture capitalist perspective now, are there any specific areas in technology that you see that are more favorable nowadays?
Yes. I believe that everything that I was saying about before, facilitating the movement of traditional business and government agencies into the cloud, it was one of the most incredible opportunities that I've ever seen in my life. And I think that whole area, protecting that, and also another area right up there with that is business analytics and data and big data, right? And I know it's a misused name, big data, right? But what does that mean? How do you use it? Well, how do you use data in real time? And how do you actually extract that value from data? You can change prices, and how do you mine that data and utilize it? And that whole field of big data is huge, and it's all interrelated, right? And how do you move? Because you cannot do that without the agile infrastructure in order for you to be able to afford it. So I think that whole area, Rudy, is an area, and cybersecurity is an area that I think will continue to, by definition, cybersecurity. It was funny. It's an area of the business that I enjoy personally a lot, and I would go to customers and they would say, "I want you to protect me. I want to make sure that nobody gets in here." And I said, "I'm sorry, you got the wrong company. If that's what you're asking me to do, it's impossible. We work with intrusion suppression. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to let you know the moment they're in. We're going to let you know what they're looking for and what they want. But we cannot protect them out because by definition, a zero-day attack doesn't exist before that day. So therefore, that whole area is an area that I enjoy a lot and that I think is a great opportunity for you to excel in."
Can I ask a question as a moderator, and then we'll go to you? Or let's go to him first. I mean, and then I'll ask you what.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Manny.
Similar to the question this gentleman just spoke about, as an investment firm, company that you have now, what would you tell to entrepreneurs that are pitching ideas to you? I mean, I guess I have a couple of friends now that are in Silicon Valley that they're investment capitalist people as well, and they're saying that the strong team, as well as a great idea, is what gets them the money. So, what do you look for in terms of?
Yeah, ideas alone don't do anything. I mean, I get ideas, a million ideas a minute. I mean, I think ideas, a business plan thought out, the team is a team invested in it. That for me means a lot. I don't mean invested if you don't have any money. I mean, have you maxed out your credit cards? Have you put a second mortgage in your home if you have it? And have you actually hocked your jewels in the corner? I mean, those things impress me because that's what I did. So basically, how invested are you in your idea? Or, like somebody was introduced to me by a friend of mine. That's the problem is, he comes over and says, "No, but I don't want to quit my job until I'm cash flow positive." Do you know how long that conversation lasted? I mean, basically, so it's ideas, well thought out, that you can articulate. It doesn't have to be proven or, meaning it doesn't have to be at a situation where, we are not early startups. We're more in established companies. But having said that, you have a well thought out plan, you have a well thought out and articulated pitch that is not confusing, and you can actually, the elevator pitch works. If you can say if you can explain what you're saying in 3 minutes, there's a conference I used to go in New York. It was really, really interesting, where you would actually have 3 minutes to pitch it, and then the judges actually did it. And it's interesting because you can actually, if you can sit here and in 3 minutes tell me what your business is, what you're looking for, where you are, etc. And then, of course, the team around you, right? Because basically, ideas, people, and this, I see this right now. We're actually involved in a company right now. We may get involved in a company that is, if it's founder backed too long, once it gets to a certain stage, you need to bring in the reinforcements. I did that. I mean, you bring in the reinforcements, right? So it depends on what stage it is, but you need to have all of the things that I just said. And then you have a very, very good shot at being able to, because there's no lack of money looking for the ideas. And again, it goes back to trying. Right? If you really have all this stuff and you put it together, etc., and then if you believe in it, I'm positive you're going to succeed. My father drove a cab for 16 hours. My mother was a hotel maid. The whole story of the Freedom Tower and getting the free milk, and that was me. I mean, I went to Miami Edison Senior High in Liberty City, barely graduated from high school. I mean, I'm telling you, And so you're way ahead of the pack. You're here. What are you talking about? You're in this lecture. I mean, give me a break. You are like, talk about the 1%. You're the 1/10 of the 1%, right? So what you have to do is, now, I can't tell you what to do. That you have to figure out. And you know you're going to figure it out by bumping against walls. You got to have that passion. You got to have the desire. You got to have the vision. You got to be able to inform yourself and learn and say, you know, who do I emulate? And, you know, read voraciously. And I was just in, again, another example of the bad things that happen, good things that happen. At this stage, and also challenge yourself, at this stage, I don't know why, but I all of a sudden decided that being a director of a major trillion-dollar financial institution was a good idea. What are the chances of me doing it? But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try. So I began, how do I get to the nominating committee person on Citibank's board? And I did. And I finally got through a friend and a friend and a friend. There's, you know, the 6 degrees, etc. I finally got a lunch with her. She happens to be Michael Bloomberg's best person, meaning she's his girlfriend. Michael Bloomberg's the mayor of New York. So you know what I did? I read a lot of Michael Bloomberg. I read his biography, I did all this stuff, and I sat there. Now, the chances of me still being a director of Citibank are this much, but that means you didn't try. So if you believe in it, you have this goal, that only you can establish, and then how do you get from here to there? It is not that difficult. It really isn't. It is difficult if you don't have the passion. If you don't have the passion, you're just not going to do it. Might as well go and become a good employee somewhere else. Does that make sense what I'm telling you? Because it has nothing to do with the money you have now. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Any other questions from Susan? Yes.
I'm studying international business, and I just see that like most of the times business is like every time business is associated with like profit and like for profit. But I just believe that I don't know. I'm sort of Buddhist as well, and I mean I'm in a family with money, but I'm just like a believer of like that the world now has to change a little bit. Do you believe in like social entrepreneurship as like do you believe in like young people being like social entrepreneurs, or you think you need to like have the money first and like become like venture capitalists? Or
I think it's very difficult for you to have any impact if you don't have any money, unless you're just going to socialize and become a volunteer in a not-for-profit. That's nothing wrong with that. If you want to make, absolutely, I don't mean to be harsh, but it's a lot easier for you to make an impact. My daughter is now running our family foundation. She's going out and making an impact. And this is what she does. This is her passion, right? And basically, it would be very difficult for her to run the family foundation if I was in his position, right? And I'm making a point here, right? I don't mean to be harsh with you guys, but I want to make a point. Yes, social, it's all great. But you know what? Bill and Melinda Gates spend their entire lives now helping in these big causes, education and, etc. Why? Why does Warren Buffett? Because they have the money to be able to do it. And I'm a big believer. That doesn't mean, by the way, that along the way, when you're running a big company, you have various constituencies. Your customers, your employees, your shareholders, right? Your suppliers. There's all kinds of constituencies that you need to please. And now, depending on whose management book you read, some constituencies are more important than others. In my book, they're all important. So you actually got to balance that constituency and certainly your team. And I'll tell you something, we excel at, I think you told me that Javier Gonzalez was here. You can ask him how we treated our team. Our team at Terremark was number one, but so were our customers, right? And so were the suppliers, and so forth and so on. So I don't think you can compromise. And compromise, at the end of the day, if you're a for-profit company, that's what you have to do. And you cannot compromise. That doesn't mean wreck the environment. That doesn't mean, etc. But I don't know. It's a balance that you need to find only within yourself. But I've always been a very big believer. It's like campaigns, political campaigns, right? Commissioner Sorensen here. I was never a believer in being in the corner with a Sorensen sign. I was never a believer in being I am a big believer in saying, you know what? I like what this person stands for. Let me raise them money. That happens to be the way that I thought I could make more of an impact than the other way. So, make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
It's a tough question because I get asked that question and people think, it's just but it's a reality.
We're on a roll here, so we got to meet.
No, on the contrary.
Mr. Medina, pleasure meeting you. In the short period of time since graduating from St. Thomas, I've realized the importance of networking and creating those relationships. I'm sure you feel the same way. What would you say are your top couple tips for becoming a great networker?
Networker it goes back to keep trying. It goes back to networking is hard work because people think it's a lot of fun to be out every night and every day, etc. But I think if you follow a certain path, right, that this is where you're going. I don't know what field you're in, but whatever field you're in, there's two aspects of networking. There's the overall networking, meaning chambers and stuff like that. I've never been a big chamber type of person. I don't mean this in any kind of bad way, but I've just never been that type of. But networking is crucial to accomplish what you want. So what I'm saying is, if you follow your path and you say, this is where I'm going, these are the people that I need to associate myself with. I don't know what that bankers or etc. Then where do they congregate? How do I get there? And also something that is very important in networking, by the way, I actually almost put this always as another one of my points, but I'm glad you asked this question. Be generous. You'll be surprised how important. I'm always the first one, even when I didn't have any money, to pick up the bill. Be generous when you're networking, right? Because that, and don't shy back. You may not have any money, but it's part of the investment. So if you're networking, think about where you're going. What do I want to be? Okay, this is what I want to be. What people can help me get there? Investment bankers, lawyers, accountants, private investors, what do I need to get right? Where do these people congregate? And by the way, this was very conscientious effort on my part. I would actually spend hours, kind of looking and mapping out. Because rather than spending my time in a committee in the chamber, and I don't mean this in any kind of bad way, I'd rather spend it because I was one person, where it best paid back. Eventually comes a point where you do it when it's fun. You don't have to be, like Tony said, you don't have to be here. I'm here because I've touched one or two of you today. And, and for me, that's like a duty. It's no different than writing a check, right? So, but eventually you do it. When you talk about networking, I don't go out to dinners tonight unless I like the people that I go out with. That wasn't the case. How many dinners were I there? I was saying, big smile inside of my face, I can't wait to get the hell out of here. But that's all part of trying, right? So networking is a science, an art, that generosity and methodical planning will get you there.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think, okay, well, one more and that's it.
No, we got two more.
Got time?
Shulas offers until midnight.
So, you talked about values and accomplishments, and question sort of piggybacks on questions on networking. When it comes to the 30-second pitch that you make, the elevator pitch that they call, what is the most important thing that if I was in your position and I was to consider, my values, my accomplishments, what would you say is the most important thing that you have to pitch to that person that you're seeking something?
Well, it depends what you're seeking. I mean, if you're seeking forgiveness from Monsignor Casale, go on, confessional Sunday. If you're seeking money, if you're seeking money, it's a totally different pitch. I mean, you want to impress people that have. We're busy, meaning I don't mean this myself, exclude me, but I'm trying to make a point. In other words, if you were just sitting down and listening to everybody that wants to talk to you, it will be impossible. So your people start out with the idea that whoever you're going to go pitch is very busy. So be blessed that you either got them on the phone or got them in person, bigger and better. And then think about it. How much time do I have? Be prepared right before you get to that meeting. Be totally prepared. I don't know how many of you read about me today in Terremark and knew what we did, and et cetera, but I would have. And not because it was me, because, if I'm going to spend an hour and a half in a lecture, I want to take advantage of it. And I want to get what I can from it, right? And I want to have, it's obvious some of you did because of the questions you're asking. But so what is the most important? That's not a right question. You cannot answer that. Preparation for the amount of time allotted on the person that you're going to see is the number one thing. Then when you prepare, if you're going to go ask me for money and you tell me that you are a Buddhist monk that believes that you shouldn't step on ants, the conversation is going to be very short. So basically, if you're telling me after we go through the first generation and I say, I like what he's saying, I like the idea, I think it's worthwhile a second look, or I think it's worthwhile for my team to dig in further. as time goes by, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your principles, your values, where you come from. That has zero to do with the amount of money you have, by the way. What do you actually believe in? What makes you tick? If I'm going to take my hard-earned money and put it in your hands, I want to know everything about you. Everything. And by the way, that means if you made mistakes, which all of us have, tell me about your mistakes. In Silicon Valley, for those of you who have been up there, you wear mistakes as a badge of honor, right? And you don't have to be ashamed of it. So does that make sense? The first part, and then the second part, the third part, and then hopefully eventually you get the wire transfer.
Any other questions?
Back there.
Back there.
Are entrepreneurs born, or can we teach someone to become an entrepreneur?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's a little bit of both. I think you gotta have that passion, that incredible, I guess how do you put it? That little desire that from the very beginning to succeed. I was very poor like you. You know what? I just wanted to make, at the very beginning, my entrepreneur dream was to make money. How do I make money? Right? Because I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be. So I always had that drive from the very early on. I'm eternally grateful to Miami-Dade College, and this is why I do so much as I can for them, because if it wasn't for Miami-Dade College, I wouldn't be here today. So, but I had that drive. I had that. You have to have that passion, and then you got to be willing to pay the price. It's a very big price, by the way. It's a big price. You decide you want to be a basketball coach to your kids. You want to be at 5 o'clock there on Friday? Do you want to be in every birthday? Do you want to be, or do you want to be an entrepreneur and fight and decide that, you got to give up on this, you got to give up on that, etc. On the other hand, it has the other conversation. So I think once you decide that that's what you want to do, and I don't think that there's a moment, it's not an epiphany that you get up one day and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. You're just not quiet, right? Something is happening inside of you. You're not happy, and you really want to go, etc. Then you begin doing the training aspect of it, right? And this is all training. And I started out the whole lecture today asking you, can you train to be an entrepreneur? Yes, I think you can. You can train to be an entrepreneur by following and all of these principles, which are all very difficult, time-consuming, but fun at the end of the day. So it's a little bit of both.
Yes. Thank you for coming to present. I would first like to invite you to my dojo. I train jiu-jitsu. But seriously, as an entrepreneur, how would you measure success? Is it monetarily? Do you measure it?
It's a good. As a matter of fact, that's a great question. It changes as it goes along. I think at the very beginning, when you first begin to succeed, it's all about the money. Meaning, you really and truly are so anxious to do the things that you wanted to do, and basically and get out of debt, and do stuff for your parents and your family, and just that's how you measure success at the very beginning. And I think as time goes by, I think that you realize that it's not about that. It's about the game. Why does a Warren Buffett, being a young 80 years old today, is going around the world to China and doing all this stuff, and this on and on and on. Many people that I've met like this, Wilbur Ross and all these people, right, that are on in their 70s and 80s, because it's the game. Why am I starting a new company today? I love what I do. It's why do basketball players, and if you have a passion for what you're doing, you're going to stop at nothing. You're going to continue doing it. And the great thing about entrepreneurship is if you follow my principle of keeping fit out and in, you're going to do it all your life. So people say, retire. Let me tell you something. In this last year, I've taken more time than I've taken in my entire life. It is way overrated. Way overrated. When I got down to when I finally sold the company and I finished, and I went down, and what did I really want to do? I wanted to take some time off, right? And my assistant was very good. She would tell everybody that I was in a sabbatical. So when you tell somebody you're in a sabbatical, you think you're in Nepal, in a mountain, or somewhere with a Dalai Lama or whatever. So where was I? In the Florida Keys. I took my entire family, 4 grandkids, son, everybody came down, and we looked like the Clampets heading down to the Keys. We ended up back there, and the first few days, I was crazy. What do you mean I don't have 400 emails? What happened to my... I was like withdrawal symptoms, right? Eventually, I found a little bit more my pace. Eventually, you have to get engaged. You have to get involved. and it's about the game, right? It's about that passion that you have. And, if you're particularly martial arts, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because basically you don't say, I became a black belt, so here I am. On the contrary, that's only like one step, which never finishes, right, to your entire life. And that's the same thing in being now. That doesn't mean that you have to work as hard as you had to before. That doesn't mean you cannot ski a little bit more and play more tennis and do all that stuff. But it's all about the game.
Carlos, and then we can finish.
This is just a quick question. It's just curiosity. What were you doing in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia in the desert? Because I'm trying to tie in the story of,
in
the
year 2000, if you read back, or if you ask people, that some of them here on this table, in the year 1990, Miami went through a very major downturn. The economy crashed. The real estate market, the same thing that happened now. The savings and loan crisis, hundreds of banks went bust. There was no money to be found anywhere. There was all just a big mess, and I was in the middle of all these projects. So my life was turned inside out. I had one of my Lebanese partners who has since passed away, was an instrumental figure in my life, and I loved him dearly. And I had a couple of, he was one of my investors, had been in Kuwait for 40 years, and he knew what I was going through. Not that he didn't need me, so he said, you know what, there's an opportunity, Kuwait needs to be rebuilt. So I would have gone anywhere, and I did. I took the opportunity. I took two of my most, one of the guys is still at Terremark today, and I took two of my trusted lieutenants, and we parked ourselves in Daharani, Saudi Arabia, and crossed into Kuwait with the Pioneer Corps of the English Army when the bodies were still there, and the smoke and the fires and etc. I was there because it was first of all, I thought I was going to be able to make a lot of money, which we did, but at the same time, there was nothing else we could do here. Right? So it goes back to, I invited a friend of mine at that point that was kind of considering it, and then at the end I said, I can't be without the family. It's true. Listen, that's what you pay. That's the balance, right? Of what you give up in order to chase your entrepreneur dream, right? So,
well, thank you very much. You still want to?
Absolutely.
You keep talking about passion being one of the key points of entrepreneurship. Have you ever been presented with a situation where you were presented with a really good opportunity that you weren't necessarily passionate about, but you took it out of necessity, or how do you handle it?
I think maybe, let me just make sure. Something that I believe it's a good business undertaking, but I'm not really passionate about it. I don't know something that I really, I'd probably pass on it.
You pass on it?
Yeah, I'd probably pass on it. I don't have it. It's like if I don't like something, going back to your question about getting to know somebody after you, if I don't like, there's no good deal with bad people. If I don't like it, if you don't just kind of come in, so if it just doesn't feel right, and that doesn't mean passive investments. I'm talking about things that you're fighting for, that you're actually doing. Unless you have the passion, you're just not going to succeed. My opinion, anyway.
Well, thank you very much. This has been outstanding.
Thank you very much.